That's right, I love hot fudge, but in my opinion, the ultimate ice cream topping is this salted caramel sauce. It's indescribably delicious, and the good news is it's so super simple to make, albeit slightly dangerous, which just adds to the excitement. So this is one of those recipes you have to have everything prepped and ready to go before you start. So you need some sugar in a heavy duty saucepan. I'm using cast iron. You're also going to need some heavy cream, lots of butter. That's why it tastes good. And then, of course, you can't make salted caramel sauce without some authentic French sea salt. Fleur de sel, as they say over there. All right, so all that's set. And believe it or not, that's all you need. So we're going to go over to the stove, and we're going to place our heavy-duty saucepan down on medium-high heat. I'm going to grab the kinky whisk. I suggest you have a plate next to your pot to put your utensils down on, since you don't want to be dripping molten sugar on your stove. And then all we're going to do is stand there and wait for that sugar to start melting. All right, and it's not going to look like anything when you start. And like 3 minutes in, you're going to be like, this is weird. Nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden, check it out. You'll see a little darkness underneath the surface, and it will start to melt. And when you see that, you just want to stir it, and it's going to look really weird. And I don't make caramel sauce that often, but every time I do, when it gets to this stage, I think to myself, man, what did I do wrong? I totally screwed it up. It's all chunky. But then you know what? 2 minutes later, it starts to look like this, and it slowly turns into this gorgeous amber color. All right? And you're going to keep stirring until all the sugar's melted, and at that point, you're going to remove the whisk, and you're not going to put the whisk back in until we start adding the butter and cream. All right? So if you want, you can carefully give the pan a little shake, a little swirl every once in a while. And what we're waiting for is the appropriate color and little faint wisps of smoke. So that kind of light amber color is going to turn into a darker amber like that. And if you look really closely, you can see little tiny curls of smoke coming up, very, very faint. It's not smoking. That would be too far. It's just thinking about it. Now keep in mind, the darker you go with the sugar, the more intense, deep caramel flavor you're going to get, and the less sweet your sauce will be. So right there is perfect. At that point, we're going to turn off the heat, turn off the flame. And I let mine sit there for 30 seconds. I just stare at it. And then I go ahead and throw in the butter. By the way, this is much easier if you're not trying to film it, because you should be whisking at this point, but I was doing something with my other hand, with the camera. So you want to be whisking as you're dumping your butter in, and you want to make sure you're using a saucepan that's plenty big enough, because this can really bubble up and foam up. Keep whisking until the butter's gone, and then quickly and carefully pour in your cream, and do the same thing. Just whisk it until everything's perfectly combined. And it should look something like that. And I'll just reiterate, the heat is off. That is just bubbling from that residual heat in the sugar. That stuff is so molten hot. That's why you got to be really careful with this. All right, once that's all mixed in, the last ingredient, a healthy pinch of sea salt. Now you could just give it a little pinch, or you could give it a couple pinches, or in my case, 3 nice generous pinches. And that's pretty much it. So it's of course still very thin at this point because it's still molten hot. But let's switch to a spatula here, and you can see as it cools, it gets unbelievably gorgeous, sexy, shiny, and amazing. I wish I could have worked in one more adjective there. And when it's just barely warm, you're ready to use. And you know what's coming next, right? Warm salted caramel sundaes. By the way, I'm going to need some caramel sauce on the bottom and the top. So do it right. And that was unbelievably amazing. That sweet, creamy ice cream with that deep, complex caramel flavor, just out of this world delicious. Anyway, I'll stop torturing you now with the caramel porn. Actually, you know what? I changed my mind. Let's torture you a little more by showing me pouring it in my jar to store. You can just use any kind of glass mason jar, works great. And you know what? I'm being totally sincere when I tell you I could watch that pretty much all day. Why isn't there a melted caramel channel? If you're going to serve this at the table like that, go ahead and put some extra large flaky sea salt on top to garnish. That will melt in, so you can't really store it like that. But it looks cool for the pictures. And that's it. Salted caramel sauce, so simple to make. All right, 4 ingredients, takes about 15 minutes, and you're done. So I really, really hope you give that a try. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info, as usual. And as always, enjoy